If your biggest, strongest, tallest member of the forest family is sick, that sends a very strong message that something's not right and that you have to do something about it.
When I travel back to New Zealand and people say, well, what's it like on the Chathams? I really don't know where to start. The beauty of the landscape, I think, is seen in its ruggedness, and its exposure to the elements, and its resilience in spite of that exposure. The clarity of the water. When you look at the sea, you can see for miles, including the great white sharks in the surf. There's something very difficult to describe, frankly, when describing the beauty that is here. One of the special places for me on the island would be the Rotorua Kopi Grove at the north end of the island near Kaingaroa. And that is because as you enter this Kopi Grove, it's a little bit like walking into kind of a cathedral space. It can be windy and blowing outside, and you sort of go through this almost antechamber as you enter this Kopi Grove. And then all of a sudden you're aware that you're in quiet. The wind is gone, you're in shelter, you're in somebody's place.
This is a private reserve belonging to Hukutiki Moiori Trust, and the reason why we've reserved this bush is because of the significance of what's in this bush to the Moiori people.
In the forest they hold the rako momori, which are carvings done by our ancestors or etchings on the trees and the kopi trees or karaka trees. And they are very significant to our people as part of our regeneration of Moriori people.
This is also one of the old living spaces. So the people actually lived in here. Up in the dunes up here, that's where the old people are interned or where they're buried. It's a very sacred area to Moiori. I think that they are markers or memorial trees, you know, to different chiefs, as you might say, that lived with their people here. There's the head there, and the arms coming down, and then the torso, and then the legs coming down there, and the feet. Yeah.
I've seen photos of what it did look like in the past. It's full of natives. We don't have much of that left now, of course, because people have developed that land into farmlands or different properties and stripped them bare.
The Kopi Groves are isolated groves. They're exposed to weather and they get smashed by salt-laden wind, which erodes the edges of the forest. They die back from the edge and going back into the forest. Without the shelter of the broadleaf forest that was surrounding them, they're exposed and vulnerable and gradually corroding, essentially.
Behind us here we have Aunt Agatha, which was one of our older kauri in the Cascades region of Waitakere. This tree's lived for nearly 1,000 years. It's seen the entire generations of kauri grow up around here. Unfortunately, Aunt Agatha now is dying. Kauri take a long time to die. They take a long time to grow and a long time to live. They also die slowly, but this tohu, this rangatira has fallen. For Aunt Agatha to now be as it is heartbreaking for us, heartbreaking for our ngāhere. It's a real testament to how awful we've been doing a job of looking after the place. If your biggest, strongest, tallest member of the forest family is sick, that sends a very strong message that something's not right and that you have to do something about it. We are the mana whenua of the Waitakere Ranges of Te Wā Nui a Teriwa. This is really our core heartland. We're connected to it to such an extent that we've often said, you know, if the forest dies, we die as a tribe. Our ancestors have been connected in the space for 32 generations, and we're trying to protect it so that it's still here in another 32 generations. Te Kauro Āmaki, as the mana whenua, the kaitiaki of Te Wānui Tiriwa, had been monitoring the health of our ngāhere, our forest, for many years. We have our own tohu or indicators that we look out for. We had noticed a decline in the health of our ecosystems essentially over a number of years, as Western scientists had as well. We had the science saying there's a disease, a Phytophthora, kauri dieback.
It's a devastating disease that is fatal to all kauri that are infected. So it infects kauri of all ages, from smallest seedlings right through to mature rako rangatira, and unfortunately there's currently no cure. The pathogen infects the tree through its root system, and what it does is it effectively starves the tree. It stops the uptake of water and essential nutrients right up into the canopy. We think about those stark images, almost like a skeleton that you see on the side of a hill. It's actually quite a devastating image.
And so we responded and said, no, we can't read any more reports about dead kauri trees. These are our living ancestors. If they go, the whole thing goes and we go with it. We have to do something. And so our strongest, I guess, indigenous conservation management system is a rāhui. You know, 500 years ago, you would have come into a rāhui space on fear of death. We need the environment to heal, and our old people say the environment knows how to heal itself if you just get people out of the way who are causing a lot of the problem, and give it space to breathe, give it space to generate. Kawerau, for the last 150 plus years, had to watch others come in and trash our whare, our house, come in with their dirty boots, chop down our ngāhere, burn it. And so we've had to live with that. We have to accept that there's millions of people here that are demanding, that live around it, that visit, and we're responding to that because we're responsible kaitiaki, and we're planning to keep our ngāhere safe and everything in it, our birds, our rare frogs that don't go anywhere else, everything. But also for future generations. We don't care if I never get to walk in this ngāhere, so be it. As long as it's here for tomorrow and for the generations that follow, that's what's important. So that's my response to people that critique all you like. The kauri will still stand when you're long gone.
So we're on Omanuanui track in the Waitakere Ranges Regional Park. Omanuanui was part of the Hillary Trail. It was closed under Rahui and then by the decision by council in 2018. It's a tricky little pathogen. It can be as small as a pinhead of soil. So if people are walking on amongst kauri trees on really muddy tracks and they're picking up lots of soil on their feet, they can spread it along that track, and then they can also spread it to sort of more distant places. For a kauri tree, if you've got already, your root system has been affected, so you can't get as much water, you can't get as much nutrients, because whether that's pigs have dug it up or foot traffic, or we've got kauri dieback affecting the root system, and then you add in the impact of these successive hot, dry summers.
We know that we have less than 4% of our mature kauri left. There's at least 19 different species that are dependent on kauri. So when we talk about the loss of kauri, we're not talking about the loss of a single species, we're talking about the loss of an entire ecosystem. Another reason why they're so special is down to their long-lived nature. I mean, these trees have ancestors that date back to Gondwana land. We're talking 180 million years ago. New Zealand has a lot to thank kauri for. A lot of the foundations of this country were built on kauri. There's a lot that we need to do to protect what we've got left. Some of the things that we are putting into practice are treatments. I won't call them a cure because they are not, but the use of phosphite, which is something that has been borrowed from the horticultural industry. One of the other pieces of work that we've got underway, the kauri dieback detector dogs, and we're doing some trials.
We have more control over what people do, and so the decision to close was to just buy ourselves a little bit of time while we're The research was undertaken to understand more about the pathogen. We had to think about how best to build tracks, and so hopefully over the next few years these trees will be able to better withstand any introductions of diseases or pathogens or impacts of climate change, because their feeding system, their root system, and therefore their immune system will be that much stronger.
It's a very a strong tree, I call it, because you've got an old stump here, and its will to survive, it sends out other leaders out of that old stump there, trying to form another tree. And I think that's really amazing. When they start to die, the bark actually comes away off the tree, and we lose the raka momori that was put on there. So we harvest that tree now. So we cut it at the foot and we cut it up above, and we take that trunk out of the bush. It's taken back to Kupinga Marae, and it goes into storage there in the shed. And then the next stage, once that's completely dry, would be to actually preserve the trees so that they're there for all time.
Our forests, in my opinion, nationally significant infrastructure. In the same way we'll spend $600 million on a road so we can move trucks full of potato chips from Auckland to Whangarei, but we put, $1 million if we're lucky into our forest. These are the things that will help us be more resilient to climate change. They're the lungs of our city. If we don't look after something as critical as the thing that cloaks the earth in life, and we give it less than 1% of what we do to a motorway, what does that say about us? So the conversation's got to change.
I'm sort of pushing 70, and it's I've seen stuff disappear in my lifetime. I probably won't be around to see it, but that's my dream, that we can have this country predator free.